Hey, my name is Mike Acosta from ADSR Sounds, and in this particular video, we're taking a first look at the brand new software synthesizer from Vengeance Sound called the VPS Avenger. Now, I've been able to work with this synth for the past couple of months while it was in development, and let me tell you, it's an extremely powerful synth. It can do so many different things. It's really cool. Tons of great sounds. We're going to be talking about the oscillators, the presets, all the drum presets, so I'll be able to play those for you so you can actually listen to them. So yes, there is a drum sequencer and drum sample player in there, so we'll be taking a listen to all the drum patterns, the drum sounds, as well as all the different synth presets that are in there, and where all the functions are, where the knobs are, what the menus mean, and those kinds of things. It's extremely deep, so strap yourselves in. I'm going to try to keep it real simple, very high level and basic, but there's a lot to cover, so strap yourselves in. It's going to be a little bit of a long one, but I'm almost positive you'll enjoy it. I hope you do. Let's take a look now at the VPS Avenger from Vengeance Sound. Okay, so here we are taking a look at the interface of the VPS Avenger synth. Now, the interface is beautifully done and it's pretty simple to understand at first glance, but there's a lot of stuff under the hood and things that you can do to come up with really complex presets. And so I'm gonna just try and keep this first look very basic and simple. Otherwise, we'll be here for hours trying to go through every single knob and function and what it can do. But not to fear, we do have a full video that's already in production, which will be a full in-depth course on Avenger. And that'll be covering everything from loading your sounds, how to create stuff, how to sound design. Every single nook and cranny of Avenger will be covered in that full in-depth course on ADSR. Now, before I get into playing some of the presets, because I know a lot of people want to hear what it sounds like, I'm going to explain a little bit about the oscillator section and how Avenger goes about creating its sounds. That way, when I actually get to playing the presets and I start to show you what is comprised of that preset, you'll have a better understanding of what's going on. Now, with Avenger, one of the cool things is that it does do a bunch of different forms of synthesis. So you have your, of course, your classic virtual analog, of course, digital. You have FM and AM, you have wavetable synthesis, and it even does some subtractive synthesis. It also has a built-in drum sampler and sequencer for that as well. So it can act as a sampler as well, because you can import your own multi-samples. So right now we just have the initialized preset loaded. Anytime you load an instance of Avenger, this is what you get. It's just an initialized preset with one single oscillator and a sawtooth loaded up. Let me play it real quick. Okay, so just simple single oscillator there with a sawtooth. Now, with Avenger, you can have up to 8 oscillators, and Avenger has what they call a tab-based system, meaning that as you progress in designing your sound, you can simply add more things by just clicking on tabs. So in this particular scenario, if we wanted to add more oscillators, we're right here at the top. We can simply click on the little plus symbol here, and that now adds the second oscillator there. And if we wanted to add more, we can, so just keep clicking, boom, 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 and there we go. So we have 8 oscillators all loaded up, and as you can see, they have a little color stripe at the top, which helps identify them. And each oscillator, as you hover over it, has its own mute button and a solo button. So you just click on it, you can mute it, and you can solo it. And another thing that you can do is you can also double click on the oscillator tab and actually rename it. Now, this might be useful if you're programming a sound where you're using a combination of oscillators and samples. So let's say in oscillator 1, I decided to use my own custom sample that I imported. So I could just type sample. And then that allows me to visually see where my sample tab is. And I can identify between the two, whether I'm using an oscillator on another one, if I'm doing wavetable on something else. You can easily name those right up here by simply, again, double-clicking and typing something in and pressing enter. And if you notice off to the right over here, there's a drums tab, and you'll always see this. I don't think there's a way to actually make this disappear, but Avenger also comes with its own drum sample player and sequencer. And that means that you get a ton of Vengeance Sound samples from all of their different libraries, plus a bunch of new content that was specifically developed for Avenger. But you can also go in and use your own samples. So if you have a sample here, you can simply drag and drop it right into a section there. You have a sequencer built in. So if we go to the drum sequencer, so here's the drum sequencer, you can create your own, patterns, but Avenger also comes with its own factory content of drum samples as well. So like here's all the different drum kits that you get. And it's a nice combination between electronic music styles and even some acoustic stuff that's in there, which actually sounds really good. You also have all of the sequences here. So by clicking on sequence, these are all the different patterns that come stock with Avenger that you can load right away. And again, it covers a wide variety of genres, everything from the electronic dance stuff, so house, techno, deep house, tropical house, hip hop, future bass, all these different kinds of things, trance, progressive house. I mean, the list goes on. You obviously know there's a ton of subgenres within the electronic music culture. So you have all of those abilities there. And if you load something, you see the sequence there, the drums are loaded with it, and you can actually lock this. So if you lock it, once you load another pattern, the drum kit that was originally designed to work with that pattern is loaded. But if you unlock it, then you can go to the drum section and actually choose different drum kits. And all of the drum sounds are properly mapped so that they play properly with the actual sequence that's loaded up. So let me take just a little time here, and I'll actually play some of the drum kits that are in here with the sequences that come within Avenger so that you can hear them and see how you go about programming drum patterns. So let's lock this so we can put it back to the original way that it's supposed to be. And I'm gonna solo the drum section here. Actually, let's just initialize this preset and make it much easier. Okay, so here we are, initialized. We'll go to the drums tab here. It's locked. Let's scroll to the top here and let's go down to, say, deep house. And let me solo the drum section, and here we go. So you see you have a bunch of different styles in here. And the cool thing is you can alter the patterns that are down here by simply, you can right click, put another note in, step another one in, take them out. You can totally move them around. You can also change the shuffling here. So if you wanted a straight, and if you really want to shuffle it, just crank it up. So you see, you got a lot of different styles in here, and the drum sounds, in my opinion, they sound really good. Let's try Lo-Fi Arcade. We also have Latin percussion. And this is really cool because you can start, again, how I said, you can move the notes around, change the samples out if you like, but you can resample this and start creating some really cool percussive loops if you're doing any sort of like house music production or anything like that. I mean, there are just a ton of different styles that are covered in here, and even if you want a little bit of the Latin reggaeton, you can load that up. And you also have, like I said, there are some acoustic drum styles in here. So if you load up real drums, so some really, really cool stuff in there. As you can see, there's a ton of different styles, trap, trance. Yeah, let's try out some of this trap stuff, and let's bump the tempo up here at about 150. Let's try another one. Let's change the tempo down now to, let's say, about 110. And let's check out some of this tropical house stuff. So again, very, very cool stuff. Vintage breaks. Now, as I said, Avenger comes with a ton of different oscillator shapes, and you can access those by clicking right here where I just clicked on the saw. So I'll show you one more time. Just click right here, and right here is where you have access to the basic waveforms that come with Avenger. So you have your typical saw, square, triangle, sine, noise, and static noise. And then you have a ton of different oscillator shapes that you can choose from. And one of the very interesting things with Avenger is that you can bend the waveform of any oscillator shape in any direction that you like. And that leads to some very unique and custom sounds that you can come up with, especially when you begin to layer them with 8 other oscillator layers. It can get pretty insane. Now, besides having all of these different oscillator shapes that you can choose from, you do have wavetable synthesis in Avenger, and right here is where you access all the different wavetables that it comes with. And you can also import your own wavetables as well, very similar to what you would do in Serum. Now, there are samples here, and I wouldn't necessarily call Avenger a sampler. I may have said it before by accident, but it's more of a sample player because the unit itself obviously doesn't sample anything. It can resample, so you can have certain things going on and you can resample a waveform. But you do have a bunch of multi-samples that Avenger does come with, and it comes with over 600 multi-samples, and you get over 500 wavetables that come in Avenger, which is really cool. Now, you'll notice down here you also have special samples, and these are things like clicks and noises. And again, these are if you're very familiar with Serum, then these are the types of things that you can add, to your sound to get little clicks and noises and things like that that you can mix in with the oscillators. And the guys at Vengeance Sound, they're always creating expansions, and there are already 3 of them that are out now. These are the first 3 that I got from them. The first one is EDM 1, then you have Future Chill, and you have Trap and Moombahton. Personally, I think the Future Chill is really cool. It's got some awesome stuff in there, and the Trap and Moombahton stuff is really, really good as well. And you have access to custom wavetables and shapes that come within those expansions right here from this particular menu as well. Now I want to talk about the bending of oscillator shapes, and there are a few different ways that you can accomplish this. The first easiest way, let's play the saw here. Okay, real simple. Let me take out the reverb and delay effects. Okay, now if you grab right here at the top, right below where it says saw, and you begin to move this little bar here, you'll see that the shape begins to change. And as we move from the right, that begins to change that as well. And as we move around, you can see that it begins to change the overall tone of the sawtooth. So that's just one way that we can manipulate the oscillator wave shape. But the other big thing is that Avenger comes with an FFT, and this allows you to have control over 256 bands of the oscillator shape. So there's our sound there. The FFT actually has 3 modes, and that's right here. But if you're clicking on the editor section, and right below you see you have free, harmonic, and bend. Those are the 3 FFT modes. If we're in harmonic, then we can go and scoop out specific frequencies and leave certain ones up. And now you notice we're getting organ type of sounds. So really, really cool in terms of sound design and really shaping your overall tone. But another great thing is that you get presets for all this stuff. So you can choose here, and you can choose Bell Spectre. And let's see, we have organic mix. So really, really cool stuff that you can do with the FFT feature within Avenger. Now, if you are in free mode, you still have access to all of these different types of presets that are in here. And of course, if you come up with something unique, just click right here and you can actually save your own preset right into the FFT section. All right, so we've briefly touched on how you can bend the oscillator shapes in any direction within Avenger. And there's some still other important things here within the oscillator section that I want to cover real quick, and then I will jump into the factory presets and we'll go through the sounds and check out all the different stuff and even take a listen to some of the new expansions that are available for Avenger. So here in the oscillator section, you'll notice that in the top left corner you have VSaw and voicing. And these are some really cool functions for this particular oscillator, and every single oscillator has its own VSaw and voicing section. And the VSaw is essentially Roland's classic super saw. And what that does is it adds 7 additional voices that are slightly detuned, which essentially gives you a very big, wide, chorusy kind of sound. So here's our original sawtooth. And as we start to bring the mix up on the VSaw, you'll notice right here that now you have these little dots appearing, and those are the 7 additional voices that are added on top. So it may be hard to hear if you're listening to this on some laptop speakers, but if you have a good set of stereo monitors or some stereo headphones, you'll be able to hear the differences there that I've done with the detuning and the panning on the VSaw. So you can see you get a very, very thick, wide kind of sound. And this is all coming from just one single oscillator, simply using the VSaw function. Now to the right of that is the voicing tab. And the voicing is essentially lets you access the quarter function of Avenger. And this is for creating chords by playing one single note, which is pretty cool. Now if you simply turn it on there, and then you go right here and you can do the offsets. So you get the idea. And of course, you have a lot of really great presets that you can choose from. So you can just pull up one here. Now, right below the quarter function, you'll see the sub oscillator. And this is great for adding a lower tone to your chords. And if we crank up the volume just a little bit, and you have the different shapes here that you can choose between the sub. I personally just like to use a sine wave. And you can also choose the octave. So if you want to go one octave up or one below. Now, right below here is where you have access to your FM and AM synthesis knobs. And by simply cranking this up, you start introducing the frequency modulation there. And right below here are the different shapes that you can choose from. So this one's a pretty cool one. It's a random triangle. And as you start to crank this up, it gets pretty erratic. Bring that back down. And you also have multiple FM types. So you can have continuous, where you get a little bit of aliasing. And then you have the FM table cut, which is alias free. And this tends to work better with slower rates here. And the original FM continuous mode tends to work better with the free mode here on the rate section. So under the rate, you have the option to choose between harmonic, semi, octave, octave minor, octave major, fifth, and sevenths, and you can also keep everything phase locked if you like. You also have your AM knob here, which you can combine with your FM synthesis here. And right below that, you also have the different shapes that you can choose for the AM function as well. Now to the right here, you have 4 knobs, and these all affect, again, the overall tone and shaping of the oscillator shape as well. So at the top here, you have the X side mode. This lets you choose between the side and mid. And as you crank this up, these are the sides, and if you choose it to the mid, then you start getting more of a mid-tone. Right below here, you have your formant shifting, so you can go back and forth, and you have 2 forms of formant shifting. So you have your fade, which is a much softer form of formant shifting, and then you have formant cut, which is a bit more harsh and aggressive. Really great for like dubstep stuff, or if you want something to really cut through the mix. Right below that, you have your sample rate and bit crushing. And what's cool is that you can actually choose between just bit rate reduction, sample rate reduction, or both. And right below this is where you have your sync function here. And you can have wavetable sync to this as well. You have multiple ways of doing this. So you have sync pure and sync add. Sync pure is just the absolute synced signal. And sync add lets you mix the actual original signal with the actual synced signal. And right below here, you have this little sine wave kind of icon. And if you click on this and hold down on the mouse, you can simply drag up or down, and this lets you adjust the actual curve of the sync. Now to the right over here is the routing section. And right here is where you can route the oscillator to any of the particular functions or effects or filters, whatever it is that you want to do within Avenger. That is all routed right here in this one section. And again, it is a tab-based system, so as you need to add a particular destination or where you want to route something, just click on the little purple plus symbol here, and you can then add in, let's say if you want to add the reverb, and there it is. And so now, if we shut it off, dry, and we have the send amount here. And the same goes for if you want to send it to the arpeggiator, pitch envelopes, mod envelopes, any of that stuff. It is all routed right here for that particular oscillator. Now, every single oscillator can have its own routing configuration. You can kind of think of it as a custom channel strip. And that is how you can get some really unique and custom type of sounds as well. So if we want to engage the ARP, we simply turn it on. And if you're saying, well, how do I look at the arpeggiator? Where's that at? Well, right below here is where all of the editing section is, and here are all the tabs. But the easy way to access that, if you're still getting familiar with Avenger, is to simply right click, and you can see it brings you right into the arpeggiator window here. And if you wanted to add another arpeggiator, you totally could, because you can have up to 8. And if you add that, you see that now there's 2 different arpeggiators. But now that there's 2 arpeggiators, if we actually just click on the ARP tab here, you can see that now the secondary arpeggiator shows up. And now if I select it, now it is going to, oscillator 1 is now being routed to arpeggiator 2. And that's how you do that for all of these particular tabs in here for all of the different functions within Avenger. All right, so here we are, and we are finally going to take a listen and a look at all the presets and even a few of the new expansions that are already out for Avenger. And again, I apologize for taking so long to get to this section, but there really is so much under the hood here with Avenger. There's a lot of stuff going on that it's really difficult to try and sum this all up really quick. Otherwise, I'll be leaving things out and people will have tons of questions and unanswered things. So I'm trying to be as efficient as possible with the little time that we have, but here we are. So let's take a listen to some of the factory presets. Now, when you first load it up, you'll see this big factory icon, and all you need to do is just simply click on it. And that brings you right into the actual preset section here. And on your left side here, you have all the different categories that you can choose from. And as you can see, there's a lot of them. And then to the right are the actual presets within those categories. So if we wanted to look at arpeggiators, then we can go here, and then you can see that these are all titled with AR for arpeggiators. And these are all the different presets that have arpeggiators engaged on them. And if you're a Nexus user, then you'll see this is a bit familiar in terms of how things are categorized on the left and how the presets have the 2 letters indicating what category they actually belong to. Now, let me back out just a quick second, and this little arrow here is what takes you back out to this factory icon. Now, if you actually add on any of the expansions for Avenger, this is where you get access to them. And I was a little lost in trying to find this, but if you click, notice there's a little arrow here. And if you don't have any expansions, then you won't see this little arrow tab here. You'll just have the icon. But if you click on this, then that now brings you into your expansions. And I have 3 of the current expansions that are available as of right now for Avenger. And that's EDM1, you have Future Chill, and you have Trap and Moombahton. So the first thing that I loaded up, and just to simplify this, I have a lot of things that are already loaded to really try and cut down on the time. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is just a sequence preset, and that's why you see the SQ right here at the top, SQ Future Bass. And that's because it has multiple sounds that are going on, and each of these are doing different things. Some can be layered together, some can have arpeggiators on them, and there's even an actual drum sequence that is going on. And here is the pattern that is all playing together. Now, I talked about this earlier in the video and how you can create performances. And so what I mean by performances, and in Avenger, it's probably referred to more so as a sequence. And that's also similar to Nexus 2. Everything that has drum patterns and arpeggiators and all these things going on by simply pressing one key is referred to as a sequence, and it's labeled as SQ. So this is the sequence Future Bass from Avenger, and let me just play this really quick for you guys. Okay, so you can see that there's a lot of stuff going on in there, and this is all one preset. So we have the sub, which is playing one particular bass, and this is being triggered by an arpeggiator here. The super saw itself, as you can see, is assigned to arpeggiator 2, and that's where you can have another different pattern playing. Then you have the snare tone, which is acting as a little click, and this is set to arpeggiator 3. And so here's arpeggiator 3, and it's just triggering it on that one step right there. So it's probably accenting the drums here. So in this drum sequence, you have all your sounds, and here's a snare. And probably on one particular step is where this snare tone is actually being triggered to accent that one hit. And then of course you have your saw layer here, and that's what's giving you that kind of like pulsating, saw sound that's playing. So you have a lot of different things going on within this preset, and of course you have all the drum sequence. You have the drum pattern that's playing. So all you do is you press one key, and boom, you have this whole, rhythmic pattern. It's like a full little song going on. And this is great if you're performing live and you want to just be able to trigger one thing and have all these other different elements go off along with it. All right, so here's another instance of Avenger, and I have the TG Play Some Chords preset pulled up. Now the TG stands for Transgate, which you can see right here on the left. And all these presets that are in here are all using the Transgate function, which is pretty much just like a gate that's kind of triggering and opening and closing real quick, and you get that stuttery kind of effect. But there's some really cool things that you can do with using the Transgate. And there's a lot of presets that are already dialed in, making use of that right away for you. So let me just play this, and this is some chords, and this is more of a future bass kind of thing, so I'm just going to play the sound by itself first. So you see you have the Transgate thing happening, some nice delay and reverb on that. Now if we actually go and let's say we want to add some drums to that so you can hear it a bit more in context. All right, so right here we have the cinematic synth preset pulled up, and did a little bit of like some deep house chords on here, so let's check this out. So really nice stuff. We can pull up cinematic too. All right, so here we are still in the synth category, and this particular preset is called Sonorize, and this is kind of more for like the trap or even the EDM kind of stuff, very plucky and sharp, and you'll instantly recognize what this sound is. But let's go ahead and let's add some actual drums to this and hear it in context. All right, now this particular preset is out of the leads category. So we're on leads. It is the lead LD Big Saw 1. And again, they're all titled, tagged with LD, lets you know it's part of the leads category. And again, this is just for some more trap stuff. Again, you can really use it for EDM or anything you really like, but I particularly like this particular preset for some trap stuff. So let's check it out just by itself. can see I did a little bit of pitch bending on there. But now let's actually go and bring some drums into it so that we can hear it all in context. All right, so we have the preset Diamond Cave loaded up, and this is from the pads section here. So let me pull this down a little bit. So under the pads, and that's the preset Diamond Cave. So really, really great preset. Let's open up one of these cinematic pads. And as you can see in this particular preset, it's actually using wavetable synthesis. And as it's playing, you'll see the little red dot that is actually surfing through the wave right below. So let me play it again. And if you take a look right here on the bottom where this green tab is, and you have the waveform down here, you'll see the red little dot that's going through and shows you as it's cycling through the actual waveform, or the wavetable, excuse me. All right, so the next preset is under the piano and keys category. So we're here, and it is the Tropical Grand. So let's take a listen to the Tropical Grand. Now, if we go up to the top here, you have the Avenger piano. Now, we also have some electric pianos that are in here, and they actually sound really nice. Now, if you notice at the top here, we have an FM sine wave, and then you have a little click, which is giving us that little click on the front end there of every key. And then you have another triangle, which is only being used just for the tail, like for the release. And altogether, you have a really nice preset. All right, so we have now the PL Paradise preset pulled up from the plucked category. And obviously, this is really great for any sort of like slow-mo kind of house, and of course, tropical house. So let's check this out. All right, so we're still in the plucked category, and this time we're using the tropical chords. Here's what it sounds like. So really nice stuff there. Again, if you're after that Major Lazer kind of sound and DJ Snake, all those kind of sounds are in here, and you can really come up with your own unique spin on them. All right, so this particular preset is the LD Festival 1, and that is in the leads category. And I just wanted to show this one at 128 BPM so you can hear what it sounds like for more of the progressive house, more of that EDM kind of sound. Melbourne Bounce, there's a ton of presets in here that are actually titled Melbourne Bounce. And so if you're looking for all of those kinds of lead sounds, Avenger's got them. So let's check this one out. All right, so pretty good stuff. The other thing that you can hear going on with this particular sound is there's some sidechaining happening. And one great thing about Avenger is that it has one of its effects called the mini chain, which you see here. And as we call that up, you can totally control the envelope here to get that sidechain pumping effect built right in within the actual synth. Okay, so this next sound that we have pulled up is a classic techno sound from the early 90s. Now this is under the organ category here. So let me pull this down here. And there's our organ, and the actual preset is the pizza preset. So OR, pizza for the organ. And this particular preset is actually taken from the classic Casio CZ101 and was used on a ton of early 90s techno records, and I had to basically reprogram something, one of my favorite records, which was by a group called Enjoy, and the track was called Malfunction, and so I reprogrammed it to pay a little homage to that, and I think it's great that Avenger has a lot of these classic, like early 90s techno sounds all in here, which is just really cool, at least for me it is. I'm going to play it for you without any drums or anything, just so you can get an idea of the sound. You'll probably recognize it if you were into that music during that era. So let's take a listen. Now, one last thing real quick. There's a really cool search function, so all your presets are up here. Obviously, you just double click and you load it in, and it's really easy. By clicking on the memory button here is where you can save your preset. So you can save as, or you can initialize a preset there. And if you click right here, there's a little magnifying glass, and this opens up the search window here for presets. So if you wanted to look for a specific preset or maybe something with a genre, you can type it in here. So let's say we wanted to look for trap stuff. You just type in trap, press enter, and then the results are displayed here, and you can choose whichever preset it is that you want. So it's got a really nice search function. You can actually clear this out, and you can also narrow things down by, let's say, if you wanted to look for EDM and you wanted pluck sounds and you wanted something that was very soft and thin, or maybe you wanted something aggressive, and that starts to refine your search results right here too. So the whole search system within Avenger is really nice. And if you notice right below here, there's an actual surprise button. So based on the 3 tags that you have selected, you can simply click on surprise, and it just randomly picks a preset that matches as best as possible the 3 tags that you have selected here. So now I'm going to talk about the effects that come with Avenger. And if you come right over here and you click on this little Effects 1 tab, you'll see that there's already some effects that are loaded with this particular preset. And within Avenger, you can have up to 4 effects insert buses. So here's effects 1, and this is one of insert effect bus. And again, by clicking on the little plus symbol here, because it is a tab-based system, we can add 4. So you can have up to 4 insert effect buses, and each of these insert effect buses can contain 8 effects. So that is a total of 32 simultaneous effects that can be running on one single preset as inserts within Avenger. Now you also have a send rack, and these are for your auxiliary send effects, and you also have a master effects bus. So I'll cover all these right now, but let me just jump back here to effects 1. Now if you right click, that then pulls up the menu here to display all of the different effects that come with Avenger. And you'll notice that the reverb right up here is titled AA Reverb, and that is because this is the reverb from Arts Acoustic, and it sounds really good. You may be familiar with this reverb algorithm as it is used in Nexus 2. The great thing is that Arts Acoustic also created 6 brand new vintage emulated effects for Avenger, and you can see them right here. You have a vintage chorus, flanger, phaser, arp, the ensemble 330, and a rotary sim. That's the simulation of the Leslie. So if you want that rotary organ kind of sound, you've got that in here as well. Now with these, you also have your traditional effects. So you have delay, you have your reverb, you have a trash verb, so a little bit dirtier kind of low res reverb. You also have an impulse response reverb, a gated reverb, which is really cool for short plucky kind of sounds and maybe even like on snares and things like that. You also have your flanger, chorus, phaser, and multimod. And right below you have a distortion section, so you have bit crushing, distortion, fuzzbox, multiband distortion so that you can apply it only to specific frequencies. And you also have the vinylizer for that dirty vinyl effect and a wave shaper. Now, these 4 different effects buses act as inserts, and again, you can assign your oscillator to any of those effects simply by going up here into the routing section as I showed you before, click on the plus symbol, and now you can see there's effects 2, 3, and 4 that we added in. Now you also have an auxiliary send bus here. So right here, if you click on the send rack, you can add your, let's say, the AA reverb, and we wanted to put a little bit of delay, we can do that. These are typically your type of effects that you would want as an auxiliary send. And another thing I forgot to mention is that each of the effects, all of the effects within Avenger have their own presets as well. So when you load them up, if you click here, you have the ability to actually call up presets. And if you make certain adjustments, if you click in this little box right here, you can actually save your own preset. Now you also have a master effects section, and this is obviously just on the master output, and you have some really great dynamics processing effects that are built into Avenger as well. So if we right click here, you'll see that right below it says dynamic, and here you have things like the compressor, the equalizer, filter, limiter, a multiband limiter so that you can specifically limit only certain frequencies. And you also have the mini chain, which I spoke about earlier, which is derived from the Vengeance multiband sidechain plugin that they have. You also have mini stop. So if you want some tape stop effects, you have that built right in, and that is taken from their tape stop effects, the Vengeance VPS tape stop. So they created a little mini version of that in here that you can add on the master output, and you can create really cool tape stop effects. You also have the stereo MTX and of course the transgate for really cool gating effects. So if we add something like the multiband limiter, you see that you can control whichever frequency it is that you want to specifically limit. You can move that around. And again, there are presets for it, and you can also save your own. All right, so we're going to touch on the window that is right below the oscillator section here that has all of these multiple tabs here, and these are where the things like the arpeggiator, drum sequencer, step sequencer, pitch envelopes, mod envelopes, your mixer section, and even key zone area and your system settings are all located. So we'll start first on the arpeggiator section. And right here's where you have access to the arpeggiator. And again, there's a plus symbol here, so you can have up to 8 arpeggiators within one instance of Avenger. So by simply clicking on the arpeggiator here, you can have up to 8 of them. And of course, because you do have the ability to have 8 oscillators, that means that each oscillator can have its own independent arpeggiator. And as we go to the arpeggiator here, you'll see that you have 4 different patterns within this one arpeggiator. So there are tons of presets that you can choose from for your arpeggiators, and you can see that they're all listed here. And if you wanted to have multiple patterns, right here, pattern A, B, C, and D, then you could also select A here, and then come into this little menu here, and you can then choose, let's say we want complex melody 1, and let's say on B, we choose complex melody 2. So let's, here on C, we'll go to synths, complex melody 3, and on 4, complex melody 4. And so now you see that arpeggiator 1 has 4 different presets. Here, there we go. So 4 different presets that are all within arpeggiator number 1. Now, if you notice in the ARP section here, every little tab here has these little 6 dots that are next to it. And anytime you see those 6 little dots, that means that if you just click on this and drag, that means that you can assign this as a source, as a modulation source, and then drag this wire to whatever the destination it is that you want. And then that actually shows up here in your mod matrix window. So this is really easy for assigning sources to destinations. It all shows up in the mod matrix here, and then from here, you can assign these into your macro buttons and things like that. I'll touch on that in just a second, but again, ARP2, if we wanted to assign this to something else, we can totally assign it to filter or step sequencer or effects, whatever we want, to the amp volume. And then you'll see that a little triangle shows up right above the knob there, that little orange triangle. And if you click on that and drag either up or down, that allows you to set the actual modulation range, which is very similar to Native Instruments Massive. So let's move on to the next section here. Right here, of course, I showed you this earlier, and this is the drum sequencer section. So if you have your drums pulled up, you load up your drum sounds, and in here is where you could input your notes for your drum sequences and create your own drum patterns. You have all of your adjustments below here for shuffle, the length, the velocity amount, gating of the drum sounds as well. You can even change the pitch of the drum sounds. All that stuff is all done right here in this section. Now you also have step sequencers. And I say step sequencers as in plural because again, you can have up to 8 of them. And that's because again, 8 oscillators, each oscillator can have its own dedicated step sequencer. And all of these have they have their own presets as well. So you can pull up, presets here. You can make the adjustments yourself, tailor it to your specific needs. And again, you can assign the step sequencer to anything that you like. So if you want to send it to the shaper, you can do that as well. And you can totally have the shaper engaged only on specific steps. Another thing that I like to do with the step sequencer is I like to take this and actually assign it to effects. So if I wanted, let's say on the send rack here, let's say we wanted to add a reverb, and I only want, let's see, the reverb to come in on certain steps, then we can take the step sequencer here and assign this to the reverb. And so as we play it, actually we need to come to the mod matrix window here, and you'll see that it shows up step sequencer 1, and here is the oscillator 1 send 1 strength. And so we can crank this up, and you can see now that right here, this is actually already sending information to the reverb send. And it only triggers it on specific steps. So there's some really cool things that you can do with the step sequencers here. Again, with all of the different presets that you get with it, and having 8 different oscillators, each with its own step sequencer, you can get some really complex rhythms and things happening within your preset. Now right here is the pitch envelope section. And again, you can have up to 8 of these. And again, they can be assigned individually to any of the 8 oscillators by simply clicking on the tabs. Again, you can assign these anywhere that you like. And of course, you have presets here. And this is where you can also create some really cool kick drums. So if you even have a kick generator preset, and this is right away if you just want to start creating some like synthesized drum sounds, and you can do that all here. If we move over, you have your mod envelope section, and this is really cool if you're into programming some things like for dubstep, future bass, and all that kind of stuff, wobble basses and things like that. This is where you can make all that stuff happen here in the mod envelope section. So let me pull up an actual preset that'll work great with this. All right, so I pulled up a really quick dubstep growl preset to better show the mod envelope section. And you see that there's all these custom envelopes here that have been programmed. And this is very much similar to Massive's performer section. And so let me just play the preset real quick. And so you can see that you get those kind of wobble things happening within the envelopes, and you can totally change these and program them any way that you like. And just by double clicking, you can add more nodes, and you can make this all time-based. And let's say we want to pull this up. You can create some really complex mod envelopes here. And of course, this comes with a lot of really cool presets for this as well. So you can choose another one here. And that one's for a kick drum. Let's see if we want to come down here and take a look at triplets. So you can see where this can get really fun in programming your own kind of crazy, mod envelopes and creating really cool dubstep wobble basses and things like that. This is also really great for swelling pads and things like that that you would normally do in things like future bass. You can do some really cool stuff here. Now the next section is of course your mixer. So this gives you access to all of the 8 oscillators, volumes, and if you have them activated, you have panning, solo and mute functions, and then you have your drum section over here, and then your master. And that is the mixer section. You also have your zones here. So if you have multiple oscillators loaded up, and let's say you wanted to have just the pads on, let's say, the top portion, and then you had some keys and you only wanted them on one other specific area, you can dial that into that section there. You can have your drums only respond down in one certain section here. And again, if you add more oscillators, you can totally map this out and key zone everything into a custom performance, or again, what Avenger refers to as a sequence. Now right here is your system tab, and this is where you have access to most of the global functions. And these are your settings. Content is right here. So if you have new content, you buy the expansions and things like that. This is what you would click to import your content. When you first install Avenger, you'll also want to click this import content button here, and then that will allow you to import the actual factory sound library as well. And this is your MIDI section here, because they have a MIDI learn function, so you can assign most of these knobs to specific CC parameters. All right, so let's move on over to the right over here, and you can see we're just about ready to wrap this all up. You have your ADSR envelopes up here, and so you have 4 of them that you have there, and of course they have the 6 little dots, which means you can assign them to anything you like. Right below here is your filter section, and again you can have 4 different filter types. So you can have 4 different filters going on, and if you click on type, you have a ton of different filter types that you can choose from. And you also have a master filter here that you can apply to, of course, the master output. And you simply click on enable, and that turns it on, and you have the ability to choose between all these different filter types that are all in here. Special, bandstop, same thing, high pass, low pass, and these are all the different types of filters. And there's even a really cool TB emulated filter. So if you want that squelchy kind of filter sound that you would get from a Roland TB303, they have an emulated TB filter in here that you can use. Right here is your shaper section. Again, you can have 4 of these, and this, once you click on it, that opens this little window up here. So you see it goes away. Click on it again, and you can really change and shape the overall sound. You can move it around, and there's actually some presets that you can choose with this. So if you go into here you can choose Devil. This one looks really cool. And choose that, and now you see you get little horns there. So, and we can move this around and change the frequency, the gain. We can actually split this. Right below this is, of course, the mod matrix and your LFOs that you can add here. So you can add up to 4 different LFOs. Again, they have the 6 dots. You can assign them anywhere that you like. And here's your mod matrix. You have full control over everything that's been assigned in here, anything that you've dragged a wire to, so your sources and your destinations. And there's even more sources and destinations that you can choose within the mod matrix section that are not available on the interface. You just can't see them. And so if you go into here, you can start assigning things all over the place and really get some complex sort of presets happening. All of these are all tied into your macros, so you have 3 macro functions. So if you're familiar with Serum, then of course you can assign this one macro function to control multiple parameters, and you have 3 macro knobs here, and you can tag them and assign them any way that you like. You can definitely assign this to other stuff, vibrato amount, whatever you want, it all shows up. And you also have 2 macro buttons. So if you wanted to add like a sub, or you wanted to add another oscillator that was maybe transposed, you can assign that here and only switch it on when you need it. So again, this is really cool stuff for live performance, or when you're doing things in real time and you want to record it. This allows you to have access to multiple parameters and do all kinds of really crazy things, all from one specific knob or button. So I hope you enjoyed this. I know this was really long, and this is really just scratching the surface of what Avenger is capable of. It is very deep. The interface is very easy to understand and use right from the get-go, but it can get really deep, and there's a lot of programming that you can put into it to come up with some very complex and very dynamic type of sounds. I think you'll really enjoy Avenger. It's going to be a true workhorse in your studio. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do with it. Lots of great sounds that come within the factory library. Again, it comes with over 850 factory presets. There are already 3 different expansions that are available for it right now. And again, I think it's just another great job from the guys at Vengeance Sound. So this is Avenger. It is available now. It was available as of December 1st, 2016 for sale. It is available now that you can purchase right at the Vengeance Sound site. And the VPS Avenger costs about $220 US. And I think right now for the month of December, there's a 20% sale on it. So, you know, if you're in the market right now for a brand new synth, this might be the great time to actually get it and get yourself a Christmas gift, or makes a great stocking stuffer. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this overview. Again, it is almost impossible to try and touch and show every single little thing within the time allotted. And remember, we do have a full in-depth sound design course coming on Avenger right here on ADSR Sounds. My name is Mike Acosta, and again, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video. Make sure you subscribe to the ADSR YouTube channel here so that you're constantly up to date with all the latest videos, first looks, and tutorial courses.